unions need to get behind grassroots campaigns, not the other way around. It's us who have done all the hard work, it's us who have taken the direct action, it's us who are involved in struggle. And if the Trade Union Congress doesn't get its act together, there'll be nothing left to save, because the cuts that are about to come are going to annihilate public services.
The Tories have an ideological project called austerity. We'll never let anyone tell us that this is about the economy, because we know it's about choices, it's about political priorities. The British establishment, the right-wing politicians and the right-wing press would have ordinary people in Glasgow, the people out doing their shopping on the streets, they would have ordinary people believe that we've got scoundrels in our communities, in our families, in our workplaces, amongst our friends. And they use that language to try and divide us, to drive a wedge between us, to make us not trust each other, to whip up racist tensions in our communities.
And one of the main things we can do to fight against the cuts is actually to support each other in the job centres, in the Maximus Disability Benefits Assessment Centres, in the workfare providers' offices, in the council offices, all these places. That's where the front line is. Folk are actually having the bread taken out of their mouths.
And today we are standing together to show this Tory government that they can never tire us out of fighting them. They might think they've got a mandate, a new mandate at Westminster to rule, but they have no mandate in Scotland, and we won't stand for it.
In Edinburgh, the workfare provider A4E tried to stop us accompanying claimants to A4E. They called the police. There was one guy, an ex-miner, was facing 6 months without benefits because he insisted on his right to be accompanied to A4E. But in the end, it was A4E that gave in. In the end, A4E realised they couldn't keep calling the police to haul us out of their offices. And now we accompany claimants to A4E, to NGS, to Learn Direct, and all these other crooks that run the slave labour schemes.
Today's a chance for us to spread the message that the so-called scoundrels aren't in our communities, they're not in our workplaces. It's the Windsors in Buckingham Palace that are the scoundrels. It's the MPs awarding themselves a pay rise and claiming thousands in expenses. It's the bosses lining their pockets by paying poverty wages. That's the real scoundrels.
Today is about campaigning against benefit cuts, but of course it's about much more than cuts, because basically what we're seeing is a major attack on the welfare state and an attempt to really turn back the clock to that time in the 30s before there was a welfare state and when free market capitalism really has full reign to exploit people.
One of our members was sent to do workfare, to work for his benefits at the Salvation Army, these well-known Christians, full of charity, but it doesn't extend to unemployed folk who have their benefits stopped if they don't work for nothing in their charity shops.
It's not good enough to stand and give food parcels out to the poor and give yourself a pat on the back saying I'm a good person because I feed the poor. It's not good enough to sit in the city chambers every month at the Food Bank Forum and talk about food banks. It's about coming out here and supporting local and international groups who have been campaigning for social justice for many years. That's what other food banks should be doing. Now, I might very well be criticised for saying this, but that's fine. I'm happy with that, that's okay. So other food banks, the May Day demo, that was an opportunity for the food banks to unite, to stand shoulder to shoulder and talk about the reasons why in 21st Rich Scotland we have food banks. Food banks are not normal.
It's about profiting from unpaid labour under threat of starvation. The Salvation Army manager completely panicked. She locked everybody in the back room and told our pal he'd have to come back the next day to be interviewed to see if he was suitable to be exploited. Well, he did come back the next day, But surprise, surprise, by amazing coincidence, so did a dozen of us. And we occupied and blockaded the shop again. Our friend was told he wasn't really suitable for work there at the Salvation Army.
Research has shown that benefits wrongly claimed cost the economy about £1 billion a year. But tax avoidance and evasion by the rich costs the economy £120 billion a year. We need to start saying it's the rich that we can't afford anymore, not people that use social security.
I mean, we see the treatment of low-paid workers as the other side of the coin of the treatment of people who are unemployed. Because if unemployment is utterly stigmatised, if it's seen to be completely an appalling position to be in, then people are absolutely terrified of protesting against low pay, protesting against poor conditions and doing anything that might jeopardise their job. So it's all part of creating a low-paid workforce, which is really what we're getting in the UK at the moment.
Of course, for the morning, it costs 110 quid per person. You'd think the take-up would have been slow. I happen to know it wasn't. It was actually booked out and full up within a week of publicising it, because people want the training on how to sack people swiftly and how to encourage resignations. Guess who'll be front of that row? It'll be the disabled and ill workers in workplace situations that they want to get sacked quickly and just dispose of them and send us off back to benefit city.
That's what we need to work towards. We need to work towards building our own power, a counter-power, to make austerity unworkable. And that can start with a dozen, it can go to hundreds, to thousands, to tens of thousands, to hundreds of thousands. But that's what we need to work towards.
We can reach back into our own history. We're not the first ones to have to wage this fight. John Maclean, the great communist and revolutionary, the final time he was sentenced to jail in 1921 for telling the unemployed not to allow their families and themselves to starve to death. For telling that truth, John Maclean was sentenced to a year in jail. And Maclean said that those who express concern for the poor and the unemployed and sit in Westminster, why aren't they getting themselves thrown out of the Houses of Parliament like Victor Grayson did, or when we see Bernadette Devlin, who attacked the Speaker of the House of Commons, quite rightly. This is the kind of actions we need to see, because now is not the time for respectability, now is not the time to be polite. You're not going to wait around, be told who we can fight, who we can't fight. The time is now to seize the time. So in the spirit of John Maclean, in the spirit of the rent strikes were 100 years ago today, when the working class women of Glasgow said enough is enough, brought the whole system to our knees. We're calling you to do the same today. It's been an inspiration to hear everyone speak. We hope to see you out at the Job Centre pickets in Govan next week in George Square to make some noise, to demand justice for Sheku Bayo, to demand justice for ourselves, not as charity but as solidarity. So thanks to DPAC and thanks to everyone today.
Old Claimants Union slogan was never face them alone, and that's what we say if you've got any tricky interview at the Job Centre or Maximus benefits medical assessment or problems with the council. Always go with somebody, and that is actually under attack at present, because as you might have heard, Tony Cox of the Scottish Unemployed Workers Network was arrested in January at Arbroath Job Centre.
I'm currently facing the prospect of a trial on the 23rd of June over an arrest that was made against me at Arbroath Job Centre whilst I was actually in representing a highly vulnerable female client, and when I came out of the job centre I was basically jumped upon by the police. Very Starsky and style, Starsky and Hutch kind of style arrest was made on me.
How warped must a society be to attack child benefit when we've got record levels of child poverty? How warped must our political system be when it says that people who come to our shores to flee conflict, to seek refuge and build a better life are somehow a strain on the public purse? And those politicians ignore the fact that we've now got a record number of billionaires.
And we've been outside the job centres just giving people advice, letting people know their rights, because well, we've had a lot of rights taken away, but even those rights that we've got left, people are not told about. They're not told, for example, that they can appeal their sanctions. They're not told that they can apply for hardship payments. So we're outside the job centres telling people their rights, telling people that they have a right to have someone go in with them.
Sometimes it does feel really hopeless that you're constantly coming up against a brick wall, and sometimes it just looks really, really dark in front of us. But I really think that the referendum cracked something open in Scotland. It cracked something open in a system that has replicated misery and despair for far too long. Our eyes are now open to the truth that it wasn't public spending that caused the financial crash, it was deregulation of the banking system that caused that. And we now have 1.6 million people in Scotland that don't believe a word that's printed in the mainstream press. We've got a growing number of people who've become used to countering the politics of fear that the establishment used to divide us. During the referendum, we became used to standing up to the bullies. And in these things lies a renewed hope and a renewed opportunity to fight them down again. There's a new strength in Glasgow, across Scotland, for a new movement to fight for social justice. And I think that we can continue to fight. And I want to finish on this, and it's a message to every councillor in Glasgow City Council. Good luck holding on to it in 2017, because the people here are going to take it from you.
Hello, I'm Nikki. I'm from Glasgow Anarchist Collective. As everybody probably knows, we're participating in the huge nationwide anti-austerity demonstration that's going to be in George Square next weekend on the 20th, supporting Glasgow Anonymous, who will be holding their Op Stock and Roll event here in Glasgow, George Square, feeding the homeless. They're hoping to be camped up here for the entire weekend. Over and above that, we hope to be supporting the National Day of Action anti-workfare demonstration against B&M, who have actually been cutting their own staff's hours already in order to make way for their unpaid labour. And we hope to be continuing to support Tony Cox up in Forfar while he fights his court case.
We need wildcat strikes, we need blockades. We need to show the Tories that we are not going to lie down, we are not going to take it, we are not going to allow our people to die. So on that note, I would just say solidarity, and to everybody here, everybody watching online, be strong, fight back, never give up the fight, and together we will win. Solidarity.